Dave, what are you doing, Dave?
What are you doing, Dave? What's happening, nerds?
Takes one to know one.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing?
I don't know, just sitting here. What are you guys doing?
Doing an ad for an auction.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we do. On right now for the Coalition for the Homeless.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's fun stuff.
Oh,
We
well.
got the bourbon mixer, so we're doing some stuff with them so they can raise some funds to end homelessness, especially with all the stuff that's going on now with people being evicted all over the place. We're trying to do our part to get back.
Yeah.
So.
Well, David, meet Jonathan, my business partner, our chief marketing officer, and director of accounts. Jonathan.
Hey.
Dave.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Doing good.
So, has everybody had a eventful, like yesterday, all the thunder, did anybody get like the major storms?
Yeah.
Was it in your all's area yesterday?
Yeah, I was on a phone call and couldn't hear anything. It was beating my window. I had to apologize to people. It's like, I can't hear it. It's pretty rough out here.
I'm off Westport Road up where the Ford plant. We barely got anything.
It knocked over one of my big tomato plants. I'm kind of sad.
Oh.
Right out of the ground.
My tomato plants, I've got them in 4 big pots because I can't really find a good place in my yard to put them. And the good news is they're doing fantastic, even though I got them in late. But it's like they're growing so fast and so big, it's like they're taking over the area where I put
They're bushes.
set the pot.
Did you ever think that when we grew up and got older, we'd all be sitting here talking about gardening problems? Our high school selves are very disappointed.
I've told them and my wife has kind of reminded me of this fact that I'm becoming my father.
Oh, we all are.
I bought it.
I
bought a new garden cane.
I don't have tomato plants, just so y'all know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, we got a full raised garden. We live the dream over here.
My dad's idea of a good time was he doesn't do it as much now, but going out to his brother's house out in Henry County where he had this huge plot of land and basically farming all summer. That's my dad's idea of a good time. And I'm like, well, more power to you, partner. But then here I am. It's like, I think I'll plant some tomatoes. That sounds like
pretty
a good
nice
idea.
Let's be real. There's nothing to be ashamed of having a nice fresh tomato for a B.O.B. Listen, I'm only 30, guys, so
yeah,
I get to.
I'm turning into a 75-year-old Boston Italian woman.
All right, I've got about 4 sound bites just out of this conversation in the last 3 minutes that we can use for teasers now. So thank you all for that. That's going to definitely go out there on the waves. I don't know. All right.
You don't know how to start from that.
I don't know how to start now after that, but
where do I go from here?
Yeah, let's just look at it this way. It's Friday, everybody, and to all our listeners, thank you for listening for the NerdBrand Podcast. And we're wrapping up our top 5 most valuable brands for 2020. As we said before, value and how much money they've made, and it's a lot. So I want to welcome our special guest here, Dave Wilson from Legacy Home and Estates, and giving us a nice soundbite about tomatoes and some other stuff.
Yeah. You don't want me on the air too long. It'll become a therapy session.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, man, and your business, and the floor is yours.
No, sure thing. Yeah, so Dave Wilson. I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts. Louisville's now my home. Been here for 20 years now. Let's see. A couple years ago, I used to work for an estate sale company that we brought across the United States, and now my business partner Steve Couch and I, he's our broker. We basically take care of homes. Somebody passes away, downsize, death, any of the big D's, life changes. We come in, we sell we auction all your contents. Then we update your home, and then we sell your home. We do all of it in one full swoop. We're doing 5 houses currently, so we're pretty much at our threshold of how many houses that we can do at once. So And then we also do charity auctions, such as like the one I was talking about earlier. We're doing one for Wellspring, one for the Coalition for the Homeless, and we also have one coming up for the Fallen Heroes, which is for police officers who have been killed in the line of duty and helping out with their families. So while it's a tough time for police officers right now, and we absolutely believe that Black Lives Matter, we also believe that these police officers are there to serve and protect, and most have the best of intentions. So that's me. That's me in a nutshell.
So tell us, Dave. Being this is the NerdBrand podcast, and each of us kind of have our own nerd thing, if not several. Mm-hmm. What's your nerd thing?
Oh my Lord! Where do I start? Okay, so nerd one, my Star Wars collection. Born and raised into a Star Wars world. I started off with a flashlight with a tube on it that I believe was a lightsaber.
I remember.
Oh, those things were the best. Now I have like real ones. Like that was the only wedding gift that I got that was for me. Like one of our people in the wedding bought me a lightsaber. I was like, everything else was plates, dishes, and all that kind of stuff. I knew which item was for me.
What's more important? Lightsaber, coffee maker. Lightsaber, coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know, lightsaber.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, that one's got a hell of a lot more use.
I didn't even get a Batman toaster when I got married.
Ooh, see, that's solid. So Star Wars is my number one geekdom. Probably two is video games. I like to actually tinker. So playing with Raspberry Pis and turning, recently I've been working on turning my old Game Boy into a retro Pi Game Boy experience, so I can play Nintendo and all that. So I've been tinkering with that. Anything on Pinterest is my geekdom. You know what I mean? It's like if I can turn something into something else, I'm going to get in there and try doing that. So that's my hobby.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, a little bit more techie than I ever traveled down. I'll be honest with you, but it is pretty cool.
I'm the kind of guy. If I try to take something apart and repurpose it or anything like that, what I end up with something that doesn't work and a lot of extra parts.
A lot of extra parts is sometimes nice.
That's part of IKEA's business model, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You could try taking your printer apart, Mitch.
Yeah, actually, I got into 3D printing recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's cool stuff. I see that on Instagram every now and then, and I'm like, I kind of want to buy one just to see what it's like.
Oh, they're only a couple $100 now, and literally, I needed a game. I wanted a PS4 controller holder, so I printed one and just screwed it onto the side of the entertainment center. I'm like, that works.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you're what they call a maker.
I try to be. There's a lot of fails in this process called being a maker, but yes, I do try. I try my best.
Well, if you're not failing, you're not trying. So.
Exactly. Yeah, practice makes almost perfect, but never perfect.
Yeah. So and one more question, just because now you piqued my interest. You mentioned your PS4. Are you excited about the PS5?
I am. I'm going to be curious about the backwards compatibility. So if it's backwards compatible with the PS4 games, it will make more sense for me to get this Christmas. And then 2, price point. I like the solid state drive. I'm excited about that. I like the look of it. It looks like something out of that Pixar movie WALL-E.
Yeah.
And the new controller looks nice. But
don't you think?
Yeah, I'll probably be one of the first. I'm one of those first.
You're an early adopter.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that I like the looks of the console, but the controller. I've never been a big fan of the Xbox controller. To me, it's always been like holding a dinner plate.
Oh, the Xbox controller sucks. Nintendo's always made good ones.
Oh yeah, the GameCube. To me,
Mitch was being nice.
Well, I'm pretty sure that after all these podcasts and all this talk about that, we will never get Microsoft as a sponsor because we have totally over the series just trashed Microsoft.
Oh, it's so easy to do. I mean, that honestly,
I love Microsoft Word, guys.
Yeah.
If you're listening, we love Microsoft Office.
I don't even like that. I'm a Mac user. I like Pages. Sorry.
Well,
Dave
look,
Dave isn't with us.
user experience has never been Microsoft's forte.
No, they're like close enough.
Yeah, this works. They'll buy it.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll make it a white brick and we'll put it in people's hands as a controller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But the GameCube controller to me was one of the most well-designed controllers that's ever been made.
Oh, the Wavebird was unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
I have one of them. I love it.
Yeah. I've got one.
Yeah, I haven't played on my GameCube in a very, very long time. I've got the Zelda, and I've got F-Zero, which is like a racing game, which I don't recommend playing if you're, have any issues with that, because you'll just throw you to a seizure. It's
Did
just.
you guys ever play Eternal Darkness on the GameCube?
Mm-mm.
Oh, Eternal Darkness is still one of the most underrated games that was so much fun.
Oh, the review! I remember the reviews for that in the magazines were just. I mean, they were over the top. It's still, I think, considered probably one of the top games that ever came out for the GameCube.
So I modded my iPhone. I jailbroke an iPhone X and have turned that into a GameCube and Wii emulator. So
I'll be darned.
Oh, it's fun. And I put a little controller on the side of it, so I can play Punch-Out, I can play Eternal Darkness, Zelda. I got all those games. It's fantastic.
I mean, on the GameCube, my favorite games for the GameCube were Resident Evil 4.
Oh, that was great.
Because I'm generally not a huge Resident Evil guy because I don't like being scared. And those games will scare the crap out of you. But it was just such a nicely put together game. The controls and the action and the puzzles and the conflicts it was just so well done. It just works so well on the Cube. And of course the Metroid games.
Oh, Metroid was a lot of fun.
I love Metroid.
Yeah.
I never played like N64 or the previous Nintendo models. I was a late adopter when it comes to video games, but the Metroid was just such a nicely crafted story and property.
Yeah, I'm sorry your parents didn't love you growing up.
Well, I had two other brothers and a little sister, so I was like 10 years older than the next oldest. So they got all the cool toys. They got the Transformers and stuff. By that time, I'd kind of grown out of it, and my interests were in, well, let's just say other things.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess my first encounter with a real encounter was when my daughters were young, and I bought a GameCube, and I thought, well, actually, before that, my wife bought me a Sega because my friend had a Sega Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
Some friends of ours. That's pretty cool. So when the Sega Saturn came out, it just seemed like a natural, why get the Genesis when they got this new thing?
Right.
Well, we all know how far the Saturn went, but that was the first console I ever owned, was a Sega Saturn.
I gotcha.
And then we got the GameCube when my girls came along, and then I just got eaten up.
Well, the 3DS Metroid is actually pretty good too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I like that one, but that's more in the style of the original NES versions. And then I like the Luigi Mansion games for that system as well. And also the co-op version that they just came out with for the Switch was fantastic as well for Luigi.
One more quick question so we can get away from games. I know the other two guys are probably asleep.
Yeah, that's fine. Let them sleep. You talk all day. Let's do this.
My favorite, actually there's two. My favorite game for the PlayStation platform, starting with the 3,
mm-hmm.
was the Uncharted series.
Oh, that's the best. It's Indiana Jones in a video game.
And the characters are just so. It's the most cinematic game I've ever played. It's all the enjoyment of watching a really well crafted adventure movie,
right?
But being able to participate in it. And then there was one. The first game I ever played on PS3 was one that somebody let me borrow. It's called L.A. Noire.
Oh, I always wanted to play that. Was that good?
Yeah. It's that whole cinematic kind of experience. It's like a film noir set in L.A. in the 40s, and you start as a rookie cop.
Mm-hmm.
And the story just sort of expands, and as the story expands, you go from being a rookie cop to a beat cop to a fledgling detective to a seasoned detective, and the story just kind of branches out as you go. and then where the story goes depends on the choices you make. So I'm thinking about, there's a version for the PS4 that I'm thinking about getting just because I want to play that game again.
Ah, that's awesome. All right,
I highly recommend it.
All right, let's wake the other two back up.
Okay,
no interest in what we're talking
Jason
about.
and Jonathan, y'all can play now.
What?
I like video games too, but
What?
I just play Call of Duty. So.
Dad?
Oh, I love Call of Duty.
Welcome back, nerd.
Well,
Jonathan, do you play online or do you just play the story?
Oh, I just play online. I've never been a story guy.
And see, I don't like being. I can't take being beaten by 12-year-olds in their parents' basement.
Well, see, I don't lose, so.
No.
So I know
Is that the first smack we've had on this show?
I know who not to play against if I ever decide to go online.
We can play together.
You'll
lose.
No, then you'll. Well, yeah, maybe. Bringing the team down, Mitch.
Did you guys ever see the episode of The Office where Jim's playing that game at the new branch that he's working at? And he's walking into walls. He's blowing himself up with his own hand grenades. That's me.
I'm not.
If I'm playing online, that's me. I'm Jim. So there you go.
All right. Well,
about Amazon.
Yeah. So we've all learned something today. But no, other things like my background has been in DC Comics, and one of the things that I wanted to kind of bring up on the show was like the fact that 1/3 of that company was laid off Monday, sadly. DC Comics, DC Collectibles, I think it's also sometimes known as DC Direct. They handle the action figures, and DC Universe, which is the streaming service, which a lot of us think and believe that this was going to happen and was in the works. The pandemic just kind of accelerated it because in DC, we all know the news about Zack Snyder's Justice League cut moving to HBO Max and getting that. And now we're seeing other shows being moved over to that platform as well. But the DC Direct, the company's in-house merchandise collectible manufacturer, it's been shuttered after 22 years of business. So that came out on the Hollywood Reporter. Major editors were laid off. There's just a lot of things. Andy, I cannot say his last name, and I'm not going to try because I'm going to butcher it, but Andy is his name. He was an editor. He formed this Black Line label a few years ago for DC, which kind of got in trouble because it was supposed to be a more adult line for the comics. I don't know if it's related to the Vertigo or not, but
was it DC Black or something?
Yes,
like that?
Yeah, DC Black. That's the one where they released an issue where you saw Batman's Willie, and nobody liked that, so they re-released it with an edited version with it out. That actually happened, which was funny to me. I just thought it was funny.
C-3PO in the 1977 card, the Goldenrod. Oh, look it up.
Yeah, everybody that's listening can go
Google
that.
Yeah, Google C-3PO Goldenrod.
Yeah,
that's a thing. So can I give my take on why DC went under? I'm going to give my
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do.
So I love Marvel, and growing up I liked DC because DC had Superman, had all these fun things, and the old Christopher Reeve movies and all that. They all had fun because it's a grown ass man in a suit, and now all of a sudden here we are, and you see Marvel's got a sense of humor. You know what I mean? They're having a good time. And you turn around and you look at DC now and you got Affleck and they're just so damn serious. I'm like, you guys are a bunch of comic book heroes. I mean, you got Kevin Costner and Ben Affleck. How do you bleed? Stop. It is ridiculous. And everybody there that was part of this, let's be a serious thing, like we're Christopher Nolan, and we're just going to follow. Batman is dark. Superman,
not.
No, he's fun. And you know what I mean? Why you're making Superman a guy that can fly and has X-ray vision? Shazam was the one piece that they kind of made to have fun. They all should have been like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and what's funny to me is, I'm a comic book nerd, and I really loved the late '80s version of Justice League International, Justice League Unlimited, because it was if you Basically, if you took Marvel writers and let them write the Justice League, this is what you would get. And it was wonderful. And it would work so well cinematically. But I guarantee you, there's no way Warner Brothers is going to touch that because it's like you said, it's brooding, it's dark, it's ultra serious. It's like the fate of the world is hanging in the balance, which Marvel handles that, only they went one step further and said the fate of the universe hangs in the balance. But you cared almost more about what was happening individually with those characters and their personalities and their conflicts. That the larger conflict just kind of it served as the playing board that all the other pieces existed on. The secret, Dave, I think, is with the Marvel films, you care about the characters and the people first. And that gives you a reason to care even more about the larger conflict.
Yeah, look at how they developed the stories, though. If you look at Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. really set the tone.
Yeah, he did. I mean? Yeah, he did.
Those earlier ones, because if you remember, there was a different Hulk. There was a different. There was somebody else who played a different role. But all those early Marvel movies weren't fun. And
look at what they did with Thor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Thor was supposed to be a trilogy, and now we're getting Love and Thunder, and that's. I think kind of mimic that off the comic book. I think it's going to be a little bit sadder than people expect, but they still
know that storyline.
Yeah, but they still gave that character new life into becoming something else that people want to see now. I mean, Thor was. Do y'all remember in the Avengers movie? It was the first Avengers movie when they got together. Iron Man meets Thor, and Iron Man makes a crack at Thor. Doth Mother know you're wearing the drapes? And that was like Thor 1 and 2. Right there. That movie, that tone was like, and Iron Man just kind of smacked it right there, but they still didn't fix it by the second Thor movie. But when that, when Ragnarok came out, it was like, oh, wow. And when it started, I mean, I remember being in the theater and they had the Immigrant Song playing at the beginning. Everybody thought that was just a trailer thing, but that was in the movie.
Right.
Everybody in the theater went nuts. I loved it too.
I mean, it set your pulse on 1,000 when that happened.
Yeah. So Marvel has had the way and had the vision to take their branding and their different brands of their characters and not necessarily like do the cheesy push the envelope, but they actually, like you said, they had fun with it. They realized that, look, if this doesn't work, well, we got to lose. And that's kind of the way they've been. And I'm kind of glad Disney for a long time let them be that way. But kind of to your point, Dave, with DC was like, well, we got to do everything like Batman and the Dark Knight. And it's like Christopher Nolan probably really wrecked DC, to be honest, unintentionally.
Oh, and they were great movies. But again, that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, that's the ironic thing about it is that Nolan did such a good job with Batman. Warner Brothers basically said, okay, well, we're going to go that direction with all of our properties because it worked. Well, there's a reason it worked for Batman that it's not going to work for Superman. It's not going to work for Wonder Woman. Is kind of in my mind was kind of a mutant as far as a film is concerned, because if you follow it, it reminds me a lot of the direction they took with Captain America: The First Avenger. It's a period piece.
Yeah.
Which was smart. I mean, I don't really have a problem with it, but you can almost watch it beat for beat, follow that almost the same path that they took with The First Avenger.
What's the story with 84? What's going on with 1984? Does anybody know?
Well, it's like everything else. It just kept getting pushed back because of COVID and everything else.
Are we going to have a $30 version pretty soon on Disney Plus?
Yeah, probably. I can tell
on
you
HBO Max.
I'm not really thrilled. I like Wonder Woman. I like the first movie, and I started seeing some of the costumes and stuff for the second one. I thought for a second I saw Hawk Girl, but then I realized it was Wonder Woman wearing this gold outfit that looked a lot like that with wings or something. I don't know what I was looking at. So
I don't understand the change up in the. I mean, Wonder Woman's not like Iron Man in his armor.
Right.
I'm kind of interested in the logic behind the change up. I'm sure the story will unfold. But.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me a lot of like what happened with X-Men. With there was a lot when X-Men when Fox had them, a lot of this like continuity problems. And yes, I said that word. Some people hate the word continuity, but I'm actually a fan of it. So get over it. No. And but I mean, it's going to completely wreck it. I mean, by the time if you actually wasted the 2.5 hours of your life to watch Justice League like I did, and I'll admit it, I did it more than once. But it's like there's the line in there where he tells her, like, you disappeared for like a century, so don't tell me about how to do blah 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 blah. And that's a line that came out of Batman toward her in the cave. And I was like, now you've got 1984. So I was like, oh no, we're just joking. I mean, she didn't take a break after World War II, whatever. She kind of kept going, you know.
How do you retcon that? I mean,
I don't know. It's weird.
I think, I mean, if I can opine again, I think probably the biggest problem DC has is that there's an extra layer of management between their properties and the movie screen, in a way that Marvel has incorporated. I mean, they have their own studio. With DC, you've got them having to go through another studio to get their things done. So there's an extra layer of decision making,
right?
That I think is screwing things up in a way that makes it difficult. What compounds it is Marvel beat them to the jump on figuring out a formula to make it successful, and DC's kind of left with, well, what do we do?
Well, think about it like this. You've got, each of these are brands, you know, and kind of ties into the podcast a bit here. But Superman is hope, Batman is justice, Wonder Woman is truth. And they're templates, right? And when you have a brand and you have a template for that, and you deviate from that, isn't it kind of a given that is going to lead to some sort of failure in the messaging and what you're trying to accomplish? Because they took the Batman brand template of justice with his mentality of brooding and his dark history and all that, and they try to like slap that across the rest of them, and it just doesn't fit.
Right. Well, again, it goes back to that. Basically, you had your studio suits, your decision makers in the studio at Warner Brothers, and said, well, that worked for Batman, so we're just going to, you know, it's a cookie cutter. They have a mentality that if you use that same formula with any property, with any character, it's going to work. Well, you know, a business school freshman knows that's not true. Anybody that knows the basics about good storytelling knows that's not true. You have to stick with what makes that character work.
Right,
in its original state, and just simply translate that into a new medium.
Right, but I can see like how it happened. I mean, and you know, marketing is, I think one of the rules of marketing, Jonathan, isn't if you find something that works, you want to try to do it again and repeat that. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of, I think, went too heavy on that side and not on the brand side, realizing that the character and what they represent and how it's set up is not that. So they went with the marketing route of let's make the dollar, let's repeat that, not stay on brand and figure out a way to make it work. Is that
which tells us what? Good marketing starts first with solid branding.
Yeah. See how we like dovetailed that, Dave? Are you proud of us?
I'm very proud.
It ties in perfectly with principles, because I mean a big component of brand principles is it's putting boundaries around what you're going to do. I mean, because we value this, we refuse to do this or that, or because we value this, we will always do X, Y, Z. And I think, you know, I'm not as familiar with the films and the characters as you guys are, but it sounds like they didn't have principles established in that capacity, or just kind of threw them out the window.
It also sounds like you need to watch those movies.
Listen,
I mean, these are COVID times. You should be staying home, catching up, and doing your homework. Ill prepared for this conversation.
I need
prepared.
Jason, put it in ClickUp. It's time to task.
There we go.
That's the only way anything gets done in my life. Anyway.
That's right. You have to assign a job.
What you do? How many kids you got?
One and another on the way.
Oh, well, congratulations.
I appreciate it.
You're about to have a horrible year. You know the first year sucks. We all
certainly during a pandemic. It's not easy.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, that's what I do. Is that, you know, all the stuff that I liked as a kid. Now I'm just getting to rewatch them again with my kids.
Right.
And so that's how you'll do your homework.
Mm-hmm. He's getting old enough. He's almost 2, so we'll be digging in here soon.
He's about ready.
Yeah.
I just as an aside, I'm making a mental note. I've got to introduce your son to Ultraman.
All right.
And then there's the one from the far left there, Ultraman. Many people today are like, who? What?
We'll have to do a whole show on that.
Yeah. I mean, well, I can tell you who's...
Because Marvel is coming out with an Ultraman comic in September.
Yeah.
They haven't bought the property from the Japanese studio. They're doing it together. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since we brought up brand principles, the last few episodes of the podcast, we started with number 5 and working our way down to 1. So number 5 was Samsung. And with them, we talked about brand awareness. With Microsoft, we basically called them the IT department of the world and nobody wants to get to know. And we covered brand attributes. With Apple, we had a lot to say about Apple because I think most of us are Apple fans. And we talked about brand values. And then with Google, we, at extent, since pretty much all of us have interacted with Google in some way, we talked about Google and their brand philosophy. So in doing research for Amazon, they wrap it all up into brand principles. It's interesting how all these companies have, they're the top 5 most valuable brands in the world for a reason because they focused on that. And these are the different parts of branding that they decided to latch onto to help them. And I always found that, out of all the top 5, this one today, Amazon, is number 1 and is the only one that's in the retail sector. All the others are in tech. And it's not like the first time this has happened. This has happened in 2010. In 2010, Walmart actually occupied the number 1 spot. But so what are brand principles? I looked up the definition on this because I wanted to be correct, and I didn't want Mitch to yell at me and say, "You're wrong." But brand, yeah, but no, he doesn't. He's very nice. Brand principles are subjective. They are the brand management or brand strategy of your brand. Brand principles are what are self-evident about the brand. In contrast, are brand values. These are objective. They're your beliefs and your opinion of the brand. And for that, you can actually go back and listen to our previous episode on Apple and to kind of get an idea of what brand values are. Guided by 4 principles. You guys tell me if you think these are principles or not, because they don't really sound like principles to me, but I literally pulled them off the site in their list, and this is what they had. Number 1 is customer obsession rather than competitor focus. Number 2 is passion for invention. Number 3 is commitment to operational excellence. And number 4 is long-term thinking.
To me, those are more values because a principle is it's an operational thing. And I guess some of these kind of bleed over into that, but I don't know. They feel more vague and broad than something that, an employee can come to work and stick to. But that's my take on it. I don't know. Amazon among the group is the weirdest one to me because I don't really know what their brand is.
Well, yeah, because they started off as a bookstore. You know what I mean?
That's
weird. What a lot of people forget is that they were an online bookstore. Mm-hmm. And then just grew to what it is now, where it's like, okay, they changed the way delivery's done. You know what I mean? And especially during times like this, they were the only ones that had certain things in stock. They got the USPS to run on Sundays. I mean, but from a brand perspective, when I look at their branding, it's on every box. It's keeping it simple. It's a simple, looks like a penis, but it's a simple.
Oh, there goes our
yeah, it was a good run, guys. But that's what it does. It looks like a curved penis. But if you're looking at it, I know it's supposed to be a smile. But that's all I can think of. Again, but when I look at their branding, that's what you see. That's like Apple. Mm-hmm. That's Apple. You know what I mean? And the thing is that they have a simple design, a simple logo, a clean website, and an easy search engine. I mean, it's just simplicity should be their marketing principle.
That to me, that's where when I got to thinking, like, what does Amazon stand for? When you think of Apple, you think of just phenomenal products. They make great products that work, and they've hung their hat on that for decades. Mm-hmm. Amazon, when I think of that, and just thinking of the people who use Amazon in my life, it's almost entirely convenience. It's like, Amazon Prime was revolutionary in the way of e-commerce and user experience and customer experience. To get something in 2 days, or now it's down to like a day. You can order something at noon one day and get it by noon the next day. To me, that's just convenience. And like I said, to me, they're they're a weird brand, and it's amazing that they're number one in some sense, because I don't know what they really stand for at the core of their brand.
Well, and the other thing is,
I'm not sure that they.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the other things I noticed is that when I watch, like, if you think about it, Apple made a far superior in-home device for the sound. I don't want to say the Siri, whatever the HomePod. That's a far superior to Amazon Alexa, right? Don't listen to me, Alexa. And then
she's always
talking about you. I know you light up every time I say your name. But when I look at the simplicity,
now that's hilarious. If we could hear that.
Oh, I know.
What do you mean, Dave?
Hello. Good morning, Alexa. So when I go through and I look at that, the reason that product did much better than the HomePod, which is far superior, price point, simplicity. You know what I mean? Amazon Basics, they use the word basic in the term. They're keeping it basic. You know what I mean? It's just like, I have my light box for shooting pictures in the home. Amazon Basics. My batteries, Amazon Basics. My rechargeable batteries, Amazon Basics. Simple, simple, simple. And that's ultimately what Apple was doing when Steve Jobs was still alive, was he was they had tons of computers, but then they finally simplified it down to 2 or 3 core products and didn't bastardize their entire line by having 5 million options and letting everybody else in the world develop like Microsoft did. So when I look at Amazon, I think they have they casted a much wider net, and also, adding, home sellers kind of like eBay. Their marketing message and their way of running their operation was, again, simplicity and ease of use. And that's what people, when it comes down to it, can a 65-year-old use it, and can a 15-year-old use it? And the answer to those is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, you talked about like Amazon's logo earlier. Not that I want to revisit what, Dave, you think it looks like, but it's actually not a smile. It's supposed to be an arrow because they ship everything from A to Z. That was their intention of that.
Well, that's dumb. That's dumb.
That was
they failed in that because it looks like a smile or a penis. So either one of those, they failed.
That's a $220 billion dumb thing, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody got paid to make that design. They're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do an arrow that's curved. It's going to kind of look like a penis, but then we'll just let it go. It's kind of foul like that.
Well, their logo has that meaning. Google's logo, actually, you could use it to color correct. I've heard a printer because of the colors they have with it. The meaning behind Apple's logo is that it's something that you want. And, of course, the forbidden fruit, the typical thing was an apple's what Eve ate. So they've got a bite out of it, so it's a piece of the forbidden fruit. And so there's backgrounds to those, but let it be known that on the NerdBrand podcast we've called Apple's logo, Amazon's logo, a penis. So,
yeah.
Well, let's watch how we're throwing the word "we" around here.
No, that's straight up me. I'll take full ownership of that. Me and everyone else probably that.
I'm just saying
it a few more times, just so Apple pulls us off.
Apple, I did not say anything about you other than your HomePod was too expensive.
We'll bleep it out.
If you want me to test drive one, though, I'll definitely do that for you.
Yeah, I've never used Amazon products I've ever used. I've got Amazon Prime Video. I've obviously used it for the shipping. I've used Amazon Web Services before to offload media files from websites because your server is not Dropbox. You don't want to store files on it. So offloading that to AWS has been, it's great. It's a great way to kind of like speed up your site and kind of make that work. Amazon Music, I didn't get into. Fire tablets. Somebody gave me a Fire tablet once, and I think I lost the charger to it. So now it just kind of sits in the bottom of a box somewhere. And I didn't really get into Kindle, any of their e-readers. But I do remember when you said like they used to do just basically be an online bookstore, and going to school. I mean, that's what I remember them doing. I would go there to save money on, books that I couldn't afford someplace else, right? So.
Well, nerds, keep me honest, I think eBay started with Pez dispensers.
Huh. Probably, yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to get Pez dispensers for the guy's wife. He was trying to get people to sell Pez. That's a weird market start.
Wow.
Yeah.
As we covered, brands have a lot of interesting starts. What was Samsung? They were a grocery store. originally.
Oh, really?
A Korean grocery store selling, like a trading company way back in the day.
Now they make terrible refrigerators. Those ice machines don't work. Well, I'll stand by that one too.
Speaking of another brand we've trashed on this podcast,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we
Flying
talked
dishwasher, or what was it?
Yeah.
Washer lids.
Yeah. Well, when we went to buy a washing machine, I was looking at Samsung and LG,
Mm-hmm.
and I happened to the salesperson actually turned out to be an old acquaintance of mine. So he was very honest with me. He goes, Samsung. He goes, there's a lawsuit that's currently going through the courts. People are suing them because the lids were flying off of the washing machines because the drum was spinning so fast it created some kind of vacuum or something that caused the lid of the washing machines to go flying off. So we went with the LG.
Yeah, it's a solid move. That's probably not worth the risk.
Yeah.
I mean,
Are they owned by the same?
Anyway.
Who owns? Does Samsung own LG now?
I didn't think so.
They are a conglomerate, and so I don't know. Let me see.
Are you guys Android people or are you guys iPhone people?
I'm iOS.
I'm
Yeah,
iOS.
we're all iPhone.
Yeah, we're all iOS.
Okay.
Yeah. I almost crossed the bridge on that and went to Android just because, and I was going to look at a Galaxy because the iPhone X, I know it's probably the 10. I don't really care. It's really not 10. If you actually count how many iPhones there have been over the years, it's not the 10th.
It's 20.
Yeah. So, I looked at it and I was like, wait, this thing's like $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
When did that happen? Because I've still have got I've got a what device do you have, Dave? I've got an iPhone 6, not a 6S, just a 6.
You're still using a 6?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So am I.
Oh. Ooh. Okay. They have an SE now, guys. That you guys can. They got the SE ones that are pretty nice. That's basically an 8 plus. But I have an X. Because basically they last 6 years now. Before it was a replacement every 2 years, but the X, pretty much the 11 and the 11 Pro, they've just updated the processor and the cameras. So for me, the camera is still outstanding on the X. So that's one I use. So pretty happy with it, and you get the wireless charging, which I kind of like too.
Yeah.
That's probably the only thing that I kind of wish I had with my iPhone is that I can't charge it wirelessly, but it's kind of a minor inconvenience in my book.
Yeah, and I test with the Android phones because if we're doing, so we work on we had an app for our company at the beginning, and now that we changed platforms, we don't have one. But I test for both Apple and the App Store and for the Android. So it's good to have an Android phone backup. And they come out with the stuff long before Apple. On a lot of in a lot of areas. I mean that new one that they're working on, that curved glass technology, if they can get that down where it folds and opens up, that's going to be unbelievable.
Yeah. We talked about that too on the show for Samsung about how they basically were like, what did I say? If you were to kind of view Samsung in a way of when it comes to testing new product and putting it out in the market, it's like everybody would be like, oh, you can't do that yet. You don't know if it works. And then Samsung's attitude is like, hold my beer. And then they go and they do it.
Right.
And
the Kool-Aid man of technology.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey. Yeah.
Well, when we were talking about, the one thing we were talking about before when we were discussing like the difference between, Apple and Android, I think part of what Apple does is they let the other companies kind of try things and let them, that kind of serves as their, kind of their shakedown cruise. Okay, let's see what they're doing. Let's watch what they're doing. And then once they've done it and discovered all the bugs and everything, we'll take the same principle and we'll perfect it.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, like
it's almost like everybody else is their R&D department.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is if you look at Apple, like they'll make these big announcements like, oh, we have, Face ID now. And they're like, oh my God, why hasn't anybody ever thought of this before? And then like Samsung's going to be sitting there going, we did.
Yeah.
You've had it for 5 years. How stupid are you people? This has been available for a long time.
That's what we talked about last time is that like, Samsung and some of these other companies on an objective level have made better products for years. And then
right.
Apple comes along and does their marketing, and people just latch onto it. It's like, we touched on the fact that it's the experience. It's what, and that's what draws people in, and it's the perceived value, but on an objective level, the cameras have been better on Samsung, whatever. If you want to get into the screens and what the glass is made out of, and the structural stability of the phone, I think Samsung has always been, a little bit of a step ahead of Apple, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I find it interesting that Amazon, when I'm looking at their products, I mean, the first thing I think everybody thinks of is the store, going to it and buying it. You can actually buy Samsung phones and refrigerators. You can get an iPhone. I was just looking at the iPhone you mentioned. I think it's like $400 for one. And I was like, okay, that's a little bit more what I remember paying.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these products are actually on Amazon. So it's kind of funny, like, you got these other companies out here that are the top 5 most valuable brands, but yet all of them in some way have a product you can buy from the Amazon store.
Right. Has anyone ever had a bad experience with Amazon? That you can
With Amazon?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple bad experiences with Amazon.
Was it with Amazon, or was it with was it with an Amazon seller?
Oh no, I've had a problem with. It's funny because it's usually a seller. So I'll be honest with you. Yeah, because the seller part, I had a person that sent me something that wasn't even close to what I was supposed to get. I mean, it's not magic beans, but I ended up with something that was just. I'm like, this has nothing to do with what I'm doing, and then it took me probably 3 months to get the refund. So that's the only time, and Amazon jumped in. Their customer service is great. So
yeah,
no, I haven't really had much problem.
I was just testing number one, the customer obsession, because I can't think of. I mean, I've had mistakes by all means, but not many over the years. Maybe 2 times, and I just reach out to their customer support, and they quickly jump to fix it. So I'm just curious because I think most other companies, even if you're a fan of them, I think most people have had maybe a negative experience with something they've used. But I can't think of it.
I've had issues with being a developer using AWS. It is the most confusing thing to go to try to figure out what you need, and all it is it's the AWS part that I would use is the S3 storages. That was it. So you would think you could find that easily, log in and get it all set up and everything. Once you bookmark it, sure. But if you come into the site, you've got literally a billion links to click, places to go that you could travel off into. So from a user interface experience with their website and their products online, they should probably work on simplifying that a little bit more. It's just so chaotic and so much stuff, it's just it's overwhelming. Unlike,
like when you go to look at anything for your account on Amazon, you get this list of a billion different places you can go that is the minutia that involve navigating your account. That's a little daunting sometimes.
Yeah.
But
well, I can even say, even as their seller store, so their back end sucks. Yeah, I agree with that. Don't listen to that. But their back end is tough. I mean, so that's the thing. I still love you, but the back end is still the trouble, because Steve and I were trying to sell books on the site, and because again, you could we go through an estate, you come through books in every house, and you get maybe $1 a piece or $10 for a collection. If you sell them on Amazon, there are some that we've sold for $75 to $100. Right. And their scanner is unbelievable, but the back end of listing is awful. And it's hard to figure out. It's hard to figure out when you get money or what's worth what. So, and we've been talking about switching to AWS, and I'll have to talk to you guys more about that, because we're about to move off our C panel, as Jason, is a little bit cumbersome. So we're looking. We're
let's
between.
Trash another product online.
Yeah, no. Let's just get them all out. Everyone, all these statements today were not done by the NerdBrand agency. They were done by Dave Wilson of Legacy.
On today's show, we vent our spleen.
Yes. Yeah. I'm the one trashing all these people. But I would say right now I do need a new host, and if you guys have suggestions, I'm going to be excited about finding a new one.
Yeah, they do exist. Here's the thing though. I mean, Amazon and their data centers are on par with Google as far as probably quality, anyways. I mean, somebody told me a while back that the Pentagon uses Amazon data centers. So I don't know how much you could get with that. It's kind of like, I don't like this back end and it sucks. But then it's like, well, where else am I going to go? You're kind of like chained because you're like, can somebody else come up with something better? Well, yeah, you would hope. Which is kind of like when I look at the brand principles of Amazon, I'm like dumbfounded because they're like passion for invention is the second one. That's what I latched onto. Right. Because I was like, well, what have you really made, other than...
I was about to ask, they modernized the entire e-commerce experience, which changed the world. So, I mean, that to their credit in that category. But, when you look at I guess the Kindle was probably an innovative and, invention at the time. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, the Fire Stick is, same as Chromecast, same as Roku, probably inferior to Roku, in my opinion. And
well, the Apple TV is pretty good, except for the junk remote. The remote, and you just lose those in like 5 seconds. The TV, the layout's great, the App Store is great, but the rest of it is, that remote is just like, and why it doesn't light up is beyond me. I mean, just I wish it would light up.
Well, I mean, I've got we've got a couple of Rokus, and its remote is pretty tiny. It gets lost in the couch cushion.
No, I use my phone way more than I can ever find the remote, especially with a baby around. That's like his favorite thing to hide. I couldn't begin. It might not even be in the house anymore.
You guys brought up customer service. Who do you guys have is listed as in previous talks as the best customer service for these tech companies?
Out of the 5, well, I mean,
I haven't dealt with some of them, but I'd say Amazon.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Dave. It's Amazon. Google's kind of...
They're hit and miss. They're good when you can get to them.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I've always heard it said is it's with Google. It's like, you'll get one answer from one person on one day, then you get another answer, a completely different answer from somebody on the next day.
Right. Yeah, Google. I still have not gotten an answer from them because we end up with a lot of tech pieces, and so you need to send off death certificates. You send them off to the abyss when it's Google because you never get a response.
Yeah.
So that's always been a problem. Who's surprisingly good, and I don't know if you guys have SiriusXM, but I'd have to say that SiriusXM is probably, I know that's not in the 5, but their model of, I mean, honest to God, if you said, hey, just send me a kid or send me $5,000, like, you know what? I love my child, but you asked for it. Here you go. They honestly will take care of anybody.
I've never heard that.
Well, it might be the whole Hertz mentality from way back. Avis. I'm sorry, it was Avis. Mm-hmm. Their Avis car rental was we try harder. Why did I say that? Because they weren't number one. At the time, I think Hertz was the number one rental car company
with OJ
in the world. But right, so it's like we try harder. It's like, yeah, they may be number one, but we try harder. Well, SiriusXM is out there fighting and scrapping to get subscribers, so maybe they just try. They feel like they have to try harder to make people happy.
Oh, they're fantastic. They're like the Chick-fil-A of online phone support. They're just unbelievable.
I think Apple does a good job. I mean, I haven't used to go into the store and get service. I feel like most people appreciate the ability to go into a store and get service anytime they need it. I don't have.
Are Apple Store gone now, or are they just temporarily closed?
I think it's temporary.
No, they're just temporarily.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing. I've never had an unpleasant interaction with an Apple customer service person. I mean, it's always, even if they don't come up with the answer that you necessarily want to hear, you feel like they tried, they did their best, and they tried to be accommodating.
See, I have had a bad experience at the store. So I had a rep who was an identical twin, and they didn't tell me he was an identical twin.
Oh, gosh.
So I come into the store, and I'm like, hey, yo, whatever your name is. And I'm like, here is, here's the computers you told me to bring back. And he doesn't bring up the fact that he's not his twin. And so he's looking at me like I got 5 heads. I'm like, are you going to help me or no? He's like, hold on one sec. And then he brings out another guy. And I'm like, oh, you might want to tell people that you're an identical twin so I don't look like a fool. And they both work on the same floor. I'm like, you can't do that, Apple. You know, we know you're cloning people, but don't do it in the stores. Move them to different stores. So that's the only bad experience I've had is with identical twins.
Dave, do you find your...
That's certainly a unique customer service experience story. I've never heard
Yeah,
of.
Dave, do you find yourself a magnet for just weird things?
You just got to pay attention. It's all out there. It's just paying attention. I sit there and watch and just go, huh, that's odd.
Next time I walk in someplace and I need customer service and say, before we get started, you don't have a twin that works here, right?
I think that's a valid question to start asking.
I think
I'm going to start asking everywhere.
Because your twin is a jerk.
Because I don't want to have to tell this story twice,
Right.
Okay?
Right. I want to get this over with once. Oh, no. You were talking to my brother. Come on, twin.
What do you guys make of the Walmart Amazon battle that's happening? I know.
I knew you were going to bring that up. I knew it. I was waiting.
I mean, is it really a battle?
Yeah, it's like the hammer and the nail. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, Walmart just entered a big partnership with Instacart for home delivery and things like that, and it seems like that triggered Amazon to start looking into. They're planning to convert mall spaces that were occupied by like Sears and JCPenney into local fulfillment centers. There's a battle going on.
That's brilliant. But see, that's brilliant. I mean, even if somebody else the thing about Amazon is they're so far ahead of the jump to traditional brick and mortar operations. You know, they're playing 3D chess. Okay, they know how to make. One thing I marvel about Amazon, they know how to make use of resources. They know how to make use of the resources in the marketplace in such a way that it keeps their competitive edge. Because I mean, we're talking about their brand principles and whatnot, but Amazon has become the first place you go if you're looking for anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you even go to Best Buy now, Best Buy now matches prices on Amazon. Not a lot of people know that, but if you bring in an Amazon thing, Best Buy will match it to, because again, they have that overhead of the brick and mortar, what you were just talking about.
But even just to price compare, I mean, and it doesn't matter. I mean, the first place I go, well, the first part of the revolution was the computer, and it became the first place you needed to go as a resource to find out about how to find anything, fix anything, buy anything, research anything. It was your universal research tool. Now, Amazon is, whether it's a part for my car, whether it's a piece of furniture, a video game, you name it. It's the first place I go to look.
Yeah.
And for any vendor of any sort to have that kind of top of mind reaction from the marketplace, you can't. It's almost unfair the advantage you have over competitors.
But you know what Amazon has not figured out is the logistics on large items. You notice a lot of people don't go to Amazon for large items because that's where large local still does well. Like refrigerators, you're not going to Amazon for a Samsung refrigerator. You're not going to them for your China Hutch. No, you're not going to anybody for a China Hutch. You go to Hutch. We're inundated. But those are the type of things. Amazon never, because again, they build in the logistics into their price point. You know what I mean? So they are saying, hey, you know what? This is a fixed cost. We know that this is going to cost this much based on our negotiated rate. And if you look at their selling tool, they've got that. If you try selling a large item on Amazon, it's almost cost prohibitive. And I've yet to see in a company, including Amazon, figure out the logistics of large items.
Right. Well, and the other side of that too. I mean, maybe this is just a personal thing, but if I need a refrigerator, washing machine, an appliance like that, a lawnmower, even maybe. Yep. I'm the kind of guy I need to go touch it, look at it, examine it physically.
Yeah.
I need to really dissect it physically before I make that purchase decision. So that may be those kind of items that maybe that's part of the hurdle. Maybe that's, I mean, along with the logistical element of it.
Well, and I think there's, I mean, the dollar amount of what you're buying and you know, how much it's going to cost kind of dictates how you shop, of course.
Yep.
You're not going to buy online something that costs, you know, $2,000 or $1,500 most of the time. I mean,
what's the largest size item you guys have bought off Amazon?
That's a good question.
I mean, electronics would be, but it's still, you know, it's like, it's also the size of the item. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Probably, I mean, I ordered a PS4 off of there, and that's probably close to the most expensive, you know, single purchase I've made.
But you also know what, you know what you're
You
getting.
know exactly what I was getting. There's no.
Yeah, I had to buy a 30-foot pool cover. You know, one of the vinyl ones for winter.
Yeah,
that was fun. That's about the biggest. You know, maybe it's probably also the heaviest thing as well.
See, I got an elliptical, and I was shocked that was under the free. But then all of a sudden, I looked at it; its price was much higher than if I had gone to a local place like Play It Again, because they were building in the shipping cost. So Prime is not always free; it's just the negotiated rate.
A lot of Amazon products are. That's a big complaint. I mean, they've got some. Now that they've gotten so big and so prominent, and they're making moves probably to get more profitable, you know, they've got the user base now. I mean, there's a good segment of the market that is specifically not shopping on Amazon due to the way that they've, you know, kind of treated affiliates and sellers. You know, they just recently cut commissions hugely of their affiliates.
Well, maybe that's why their logo's a giant penis. Just around.
Big FU.
And
yeah, they're just like, hey, look at this. Here it is again. Take a look at it. That's my logo. My logo's a penis. That's right. I'm just knocking you guys off.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap up the podcast right there. We're going to probably end on that note.
End on that
note.
Thanks, nerds.
Yeah, Amazon's occupies for now the number one spot at $220 billion in comparison to others, and you know, we've pretty much covered, I think, our opinions of their logo and many other products they have. They do, and I think we can all agree too that it's a little confusing when they like, what else do they make? You know, and I'm sure they make stuff. I know that most of these companies that have that kind of money, like them and Google and even Walmart, are investing in machine learning, robotics, and all kinds of stuff that us day-to-day folks probably don't realize. I mean, you know, Dave, you're trying to not make your Amazon, whatever it's called, mad in the background. And
she just winked at you for that.
That's the first one that's winked at me in like a year, so that's cool.
I'm so sad.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think I've ever had a woman wink at me. I mean,
that's probably a valid point.
Let me tell you.
You're like, you got something in your eye?
Who the hell winks anymore anyway? I thought that only happened in movies.
Anyways, thanks, Dave, for coming on the show today. I want to thank. I definitely hope that you can be a repeat guest, and I want to thank all of our listeners who've been sharing and listening to the podcast. We see you, we recognize you, and before Mitch's printer kicks on, I'm going to go ahead and start closing out the show. And thank everybody again for listening. Thank everybody for participating. Check out Amazon. Check out our last podcast about Google, and go to our website at nerdbrandagency.com, and you can listen to the latest podcast episode at nerdbrandagency.com/podcast. You can find it on iTunes, though I don't know how much longer because of Dave, but we'll see. We're also on Spotify, Google, and all the other places, and it was a blast having you on, man. We appreciate it, and I want to say to everybody out there, remember, keep your nerd brand strong.